Hello, are you ready for today's book? We're going to read a picture book today called Amelia Ellicott's Garden. We can see that it is published by Scholastic and the name of the author and the illustrator is written at the top. We can tell that it's a fiction book, a made-up story because of the style of pictures on the front. Amelia Ellicott is an old lady and she has lived in the same house in the same street for a really long time. And sometimes when we live somewhere for a really long time, we notice that the street around us might change. The house next door might get knocked down and a tall building might be built there. We might notice that the house next door might get a bit extra built on at the back. Or we might even find that our street's been changed a bit. They might widen the street, or they might knock down a house and make a different thing from it, like a park. Things are changing if we stay in our streets long enough. And this is what's happened to Amelia Ellicott. She's a very old lady who's lived in the same house for a really long time. I hope that you enjoy Amelia Ellicott's garden today. This is the start of the story. A long time ago, Amelia Ellicott's family owned most of Sampson Street, from the fish and chip shop on the corner to the roundabout on the main road. The illustrator has made these pictures look brownish or orange to show that it's from a time that has passed, from years ago when Amelia Ellicott was a young girl. We can also see it's from the past because of the type of prams or strollers that the babies are in, and because the people are driving around in a horse and cart rather than a car. We can also see by their clothes and hats that they are dressed like people from times past. And if we come along here, we can actually see the young Amelia Ellicott walking down her street. Here she is. And the story continues in the present time. It says, now Amelia Ellicott and her cat Mustafah live in number 56, next door to a 3-story block of flats. That means it's got 1, 2, 3 levels. Every day, Amelia Ellicott goes about working in her garden as if the flats and the people who live in them don't exist. This used to be such a select neighbourhood, she said to Mustafah. Select means a high class, full of important people, maybe with lots of money. So she's being a bit snobbish about the people who live next door. She feels a bit too proud of her own type of housing, so she's not talking to the people. She is acting as if they don't exist. You can see she's facing the other way, even though there is somebody up there who is watching. Amelia Ellicott's garden is getting out of hand. The roses near the road are almost too big for her to prune, and her once beautiful lawn is chock full of weeds. But she is proud of her home, and she is immensely proud of her chickens. So we can hear some phrases there. Getting out of hand. So getting out of hand means that it's a bit too much for her. She can't keep up with it. The job has gotten a bit too big for her. Also, we're talking about the roses near the road being too big for her to prune. Pruning is when we cut back parts of a plant or a bush with some special scissors called secateurs, and they can clip back some of the branches to make the plant grow better. She's very proud of her home though, she loves it. And she is immensely proud of her chickens, it says. Immensely means really, really proud. A lot. Amelia Ellicott's chickens aren't just ordinary chickens. Ordinary means plain or average. They are prize Pekin bantams, the colour of sunshine and marigolds. What a lovely way to describe something, the colour of sunshine and marigolds. Both of those things are yellow. The sunshine, when we look at the sun, we feel like it looks a bit yellow, and marigolds are yellow flowers. Every morning, Amelia Ellicott feeds them corn. And every evening she visits them and stays for a chat. A chat is like a talk. So I don't think the chickens will be talking back very much, will they? Now, if we look across her garden, we can see the block of flats or the block of units or apartments next door. And up there on the third floor, there is a man who is watching the garden and watching the chickens. That's one of her neighbours. In the spring, she had waited anxiously. She was very worried for the new chicks to hatch. And when the first tiny fluffball chicks poked out from under the wings of the broody hens, she wished, just for a minute, there was someone to show them to. Now, she has described the chick as tiny fluffball. So those are her adjectives, tiny and fluffball, which means that it's full of feathers, very furry and a little ball. And a chick hatches out of an egg, and the eggs are sat on by a hen. And when we say a broody hen or a brooding hen, it means the mother chicken that's sitting on the eggs. But there is no one, for Amelia Ellicott's family died a long time ago, and Mustafah refuses to be interested in chickens. So here we find Mustafah, the cat, up in the tree, not interested in the chickens. Now we can see that because she is wishing she had someone to show them to, but she doesn't have anyone, maybe even though she's very proud of her house and proud of her garden and proud of her chickens, we think maybe she might be a bit lonely. We're taking some hints from the story that tell us that she might be a bit lonely. Firstly, she's always alone in the pictures. She wishes she had someone to share her baby chicks with, and there's nobody around her because her family died a long time ago. I think she's quite old. And now we're moving across to one of her neighbours. This is one of her neighbours in the picture. But Tony Timponi is. Every evening before supper, he sits on the balcony of his third-storey flat and watches the chickens scratching in their yard. So he is interested in the chickens. He doesn't have a yard, he's in a block of units or flats. But if we have a look across here, this is a picture of where he used to live. But back home in Italy, Tony and his wife Donna kept chickens and goats and grew fruit trees and vegetables. Now they live in a flat. Life is hard, says Tony Timponi as he watches Amelia Ellicott's chickens. Life is terrible hard. So we know that because he's saying life is hard, he's not that happy about living in the unit in his new country. He is dreaming of the land and the animals and the vegetables he had. That's why he's looking down at Amelia Ellicott's chickens. Now we're going to meet some more of the neighbours. Adrian Popper agrees. That means he agrees that life is hard. He looks down into Amelia Ellicott's garden and wishes he could have just the tiniest corner to grow cabbages and zucchinis, which are both vegetables. His neighbour, Lin Lee, sipping an early morning cup of tea, dreams of ducks paddling about on Amelia Ellicott's fish pond. So they've both got different ideas of what they'd like to do with the land if they were able to share. The Martinovich children trying to see over the fence, plan a tire swing in the big mulberry tree. So a mulberry tree is a tree that grows a special type of fruit. They're kind of like grapes or berries, and they're purple. And if you put a piece of rope over one of the really strong branches and add an old car tire to the bottom, it will make a tire swing. So even though they are all dreaming of her yard, the story tells us, but no one says a word. They are too shy. And besides, Amelia Ellicott never even gives them the time of day. Now that expression, the time of day, it doesn't mean that she wouldn't tell them what the time was if they asked. It just means she's not interested in talking to them. She doesn't approach them. She completely ignores them. That person wouldn't give me the time of day. That means they're just not interested. Now, in stories that we write, narratives, we often have a complication or a problem. Now, so far in the story, we've kind of got two problems. One is that Amelia Ellicott is lonely, and the second problem is that the neighbours are really wishing they had a garden. But this is the main problem in the story that changes everything. Then, one grey and wintry afternoon, there is a terrible storm. And the wind whips up Sampson Street like a tornado. What a lovely description. The wind whips up. That means it's going very fast up the street. It's almost like the sound of a whip, or how fast we can crack a whip. That's how fast the air is moving or the wind is moving. And she is using a simile to describe the wind. She's comparing the wind to a tornado, like a tornado. A tornado is a really big windstorm that we might find out in places in the world. They don't happen in every part of the world, but it's a very big wind that spirals around and causes a lot of damage. But you can see how windy it is here by the pictures. And the people in the apartments are inside, and Amelia Ellicott is inside. Amelia Ellicott watches in horror. That means she's shocked and afraid as her garden flies past the window. The red and white umbrella she bought for the patio is the veranda, a pink rose bush, several pot plants, the rubbish bin, and the chicken house roof. "No, not the chicken house," she says, and we can see she's speaking now because of the speech marks around it. And the exclamation mark tells us something about the way she says it. "No, not the chicken house." She's shocked and worried. She runs outside just in time to see the wind fling the sheets of corrugated iron against the fence. Then it lifts them up and dumps them in the car park of the block of flats. So corrugated iron is found on roofs or sometimes fences or sheds, and it's wavy steel. Well, it's iron, but another metal. Next come the chickens. And finally, Amelia Ellicott herself, with her skirt over the top of her head. My goodness, what a big wind this is. And there, in the pouring rain, are all the neighbours, running around, chasing chickens or trying to catch bits of Amelia Ellicott's garden. What lovely neighbours they are, even though she wasn't talking to them and she was ignoring them and not sharing. They were still very kind to her and helped her to get her garden and chickens back. Amelia Ellicott straightens her skirt. "Oh dear," she says, "what a to-do." A to-do is like a mess or a problem. "Not to worry," says Donna Timponi. "You come and sit down. I'll make you a nice cup of tea." What a lovely neighbour. While they drink tea in Donna Timponi's smart little kitchen, Tony Timponi and his neighbours catch all the chickens, even the cockerel, male, who is high up in the mulberry tree. Then they carry all the sheets of corrugated iron into Amelia Ellicott's garden and nail them back on the chicken house roof. Even the kids are helping. "We'll come tomorrow and help clean up," says Adrian Popper. "No fence for a while, eh?" So he's trying to suggest to her, "Hey, if we've helped you so much, maybe you should welcome us into the garden." Amelia manages a smile. "No," she agrees, "no fence." "You could grow cabbages in that patch," Adrian says thoughtfully. "I like cabbages," says Amelia, "and zucchinis." Cabbages and zucchinis are both vegetables. "We used to grow zucchinis over there. Do you think?" This part of the story has no words, but the pictures continue and tell us what is happening next in the story. So sometimes we need to watch the pictures and concentrate on the story so that we can really understand the book. And you can see that she has made tea and biscuits, and people are planting things and carrying pot plants, and the kids ended up swinging in a tire swing in the mulberry tree, and Lynn ended up getting the ducks in the pond. So she's finally sharing. Sometimes people act a bit unfriendly or not interested, but maybe they might actually be shy or lonely themselves. I don't think she feels snobbish about her house anymore. Seems like she's very grateful for her neighbours and willing to share. The following spring, Amelia Ellicott's chickens hatch. 12 tiny fluffball chicks. The 3 dots at the end of the word chicks tell us that the next part of the sentence is over the next page. And Amelia shows them off to everyone. So she's not alone anymore, and all of the neighbours have been able to enjoy her garden. So in the narrative, we had the problem, which was she was lonely, the neighbours really wanted to share in her yard, and the big problem was the storm. But the way that the neighbours helped to fix the problem causes us to move on to the last part of the story, the ending, where they are all friends and nobody's lonely and everybody gets to share the garden. I hope you liked this story, Amelia Ellicott's Garden.